Donald Trump's strike on Iran wasn't just illegal, it was also a complete failure, not only because the objective of the military operation wasn't achieved, although Donald Trump will say the site that was the target of the attack was completely obliterated. Reporting suggests that it was damaged, but not completely destroyed. And on top of that, these attacks have backfired into further escalation as Iran is firing missiles at U.S. bases in Qatar. Anyone can see that this was a complete failure. And it's not just Democrats, it is J.D. Vance as well, who accidentally let slip one of the biggest operational failures of this whole mission that was due to Donald Trump's own incompetence in an interview with ABC. We are going to get into it. But first, I wanted to start with a very powerful rebuke of Donald Trump's actions by Congresswoman Stanberry. Let's take a look right here.
I rise today to say no to endless wars, no to a president who breaks the law daily, no to a Republican Congress that is so weak and so spineless that they refuse to stand up. No to congressmen and women who refuse to do their jobs. No to a Republican Congress that is attempting to rob the American people of health care, food, and public lands. No to lawmakers who refuse to speak out as this administration undermines the rule of law, due process, and American democracy. No to members of this chamber who have been so kowtowed by Donald Trump that they are failing to stand up for the American people, their own people who elected them in good faith and sent them here to defend this country and uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. We say no. Mr. Speaker, I stand here today as Donald Trump has taken us to the precipice of war, a constitutional crisis, and millions living in fear and marching in the streets. 3 days ago, the president ordered a unilateral military strike against Iran and notified the majority of Congress and the American people essentially by tweet, using a social media post on Truth Social. And days later, the world is in chaos because we have a president that is acting unilaterally, authoritarianism on the rise across the planet, and a region that has been destabilized by conflict and violence, putting millions of people not only in this country but across the world at risk.
This is exactly the type of fight that Democrats need to be bringing right now. Very loudly denouncing not just the illegal action or waiting for an investigation, more intelligence. So many statements by Democrats over the weekend said, we're going to wait, we're going to see. What do we need to see? But besides the fact that Donald Trump is trying to get us into a new, unjustifiable, and unnecessary war because he thinks it'll boost his approval rating and he's failing at the job, it's the reason why J.D. Vance, as we'll soon see, kind of let that slip, and why Donald Trump is rage posting that media outlets are reporting that this was a failure. So before we get into JD, let's take a look at Donald Trump's most recent Truth Social freakout. Trump most recently wrote on Truth Social, the sites that we hit in Iran were totally destroyed, and everyone knows it. Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible. And even they say they were pretty well destroyed. Working especially hard on this falsehood is Allison Cooper of Fake News, CNN, Dumb, Brian Roberts, chairman of Comcast, Johnny Carl of ABC Fake News, and always the losers of, again, Comcast, NBC Fake News. It never ends with the sleazebags in the media, and that's why their ratings are at an all-time low, zero credibility. Well, Donald Trump is about to be very, very upset with ABC, as J.D. Vance just did an interview in which he let slip that Donald Trump might be responsible for why their mission failed so completely. And we can see that in this article right here, Vance hints uranium was moved. After Trump tipped off Tran, Vice President J.D. Vance raised major questions about the success of the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities after suggesting that Tran's near-bomb-grade uranium was moved before the attacks. Israeli sources were quoted as saying that Iran moved as much as 880 pounds of uranium enriched to 60% purity from a secure nuclear storage plant in the ancient city of Isfahan. Iran has made no secret that they have protected this material. Mariano Grossi, director of the International Atomic Energy Agency, told CNN. Gross added that his inspectors had not been able to visit the Iranian sites since the U.S. bombings, while Trump's press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, also maintained on Monday that the administration had a high degree of confidence that Saturday night's bombings took out Iran's uranium stockpile. Vance seemed to suggest the opposite. We are going to work in the coming weeks to ensure that we do something with that fuel. And that's one of the things that we're going to have conversations with the Iranians about this week. He told ABC News this week there has been widespread speculation since the bombings that Trump's threats on social media, including one post calling for Tehran to be evacuated, telegraphed the strikes to Iranians and allowed them to take precautions to protect uranium stocks, according to the New York Times. The batch of uranium is enough to make 9 or 10 atomic bombs and could be transferred and cast in about 10 cars. Satellite images taken out of the mountain nuclear sites outside Tran showed 16 trucks parked near an entrance in the days before the U.S. attacks. Although there was no confirmation that any uranium was moved, Vance insisted that Tran had been prevented from creating weapons uranium, and that was really the goal here. He added, so if the goal was to destroy the uranium, and Donald Trump wildly posting on Truth Social Telegraph that so much that the uranium was moved from the site that you bombed, then what did you do, besides creating unnecessary conflict with no success in your military objective? J.D. Vance can't answer that. Donald Trump can't answer that. Yesterday, J.D. Vance said that this conflict ended because the mission was so successful, and now he's contradicting that, throwing Trump under the bus, admitting that his idiotic postings have cost the success of a mission. Essentially, that is what's happening with this administration, and J.D. Vance can't lie his way out of this, even though he tried in the rest of that interview, which I want to take a look at.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for joining us. The big question is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, we're not at war with Iran, John. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program, and I think the president took decisive action to destroy that program last night. If I could step back a little bit, we have to give an incredible amount of gratitude to the troops who did an amazing thing last night. Think about this, John. They flew thousands of miles away, a 30-hour nonstop flight. They never touched down on the ground, and they dropped a 30,000-pound bomb on a target about the size of a washing machine. No military in the world has the training, the skills, and the equipment to do what these guys did last night. I know the president and I are both very proud of them, and I think what they did was accomplish a very core American national objective. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapons program. The president's been very clear about this, and thanks to the bravery and competence and skill of our great pilots and everybody who supported this mission, we took a major step forward for that national objective last night.
It certainly was a complex and overwhelming mission, 125 aircraft involved, we are told. Can you say definitively that Iran's nuclear program has now been destroyed?
Well, John, I don't want to get into the sensitive intelligence here, but we know that we set the Iranian nuclear program back substantially last night. Whether it's years or beyond that, we know it's going to be a very long time before Iran can even build a nuclear weapon if they want to. But I actually think that raises the most important question. The president talked about this last night. We want Iran to give up their nuclear weapons program peacefully, but there is no way that the United States is going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And so they really have to choose a pathway, John. Are they going to go down the path of continued war, of funding terrorism, of seeking a nuclear weapon, or are they going to work with us to give up nuclear weapons permanently? If they're willing to choose the smart path, they're certainly going to to find a willing partner in the United States to dismantle that nuclear weapons program. But if they decide they're going to attack our troops, if they decide they're going to continue to try to build a nuclear weapon, then we are going to respond to that with overwhelming force. So really what happens next is up to the Iranians.
So let me drill down on what was accomplished, because there's a report this morning in the New York Times that Fordo, that deep underground enrichment facility, was severely damaged but not fully destroyed. But the president said last night the enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Can we say that definitively, or are we just not sure yet? I mean, have those facilities been obliterated?
Well, John, severely damaged versus obliterated, I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. What we know is the nuclear program back substantially. And again, John, I don't want to get into very sensitive intelligence about what we know, but I feel extremely confident, and I can say to the American people with great confidence that they are much further away from a nuclear program today than they were 24 hours ago. That was the objective of the mission, to destroy that Fordo nuclear site and, of course, do some damage to the other sites as well. But we feel very confident that the Fordo nuclear site was substantially set back, and that was our goal.
The UN's atomic energy watchdog said that Iran had 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium. Do we know what has become of that? Was it destroyed in this attack? Do we know? That's a big stockpile.
We're going to work in the coming weeks. Yeah, John, we're going to work in the coming weeks to ensure that we do something with that fuel. And that's one of the things that we're going to have conversations with the Iranians about. But what we know, John, is they no longer have the capacity to turn that stockpile of highly enriched uranium to weapons grade uranium. And that was really the goal here. Uranium is not that difficult to come by, John, but enriching uranium up to the point of a nuclear weapon, that is what the president put a stop to last night.
This morning, the Russian reaction caught my eye. Dmitry Medvedev, of course, the former president and prime minister of Russia, now the deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, said the enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. A number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. What do you make of that Russian response? And are they off base? I mean, they're saying that the nuclear program in Iran is still well underway.
Well, first of all, I think it's a bizarre response, but I also don't know that that guy speaks for President Putin or for the Russian government. One of the things that we've picked up, John, in our conversations with the Russians over the last few months, despite our many disagreements, of course, with the state of Russia, they've been very consistent that they don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. And this is what I think many commentators underappreciate about what the president did last night. Iran having a nuclear weapon, nuclear proliferation in the Middle East, is a disaster for pretty much everybody. It's one of the few issues where Russia, China, and the United States have broad agreement, is that we don't want to see a nuclear arms race in the Middle East.
J.D. Vance is just not a very good liar. And it makes sense because it's not clear exactly what this administration is trying to accomplish. Pete Hegseth said on Sunday that regime change was not the goal of the administration, only for hours later Donald Trump to post something completely different. One, it's because no one's talking to Pete Hegseth, and two, because Donald Trump doesn't even know what he wants. This is an incompetent administration causing chaos and putting us all in harm's way. Because of it, we're going to continue to call that out. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.